Sound to you, but we are connected to a live stream this morning so that we can welcome any families who are joining on Zoom. So thank you very much for coming. My name is Megan Brazil. I'm the elementary school principal here at UNIS, and this morning's parent information session is around English as an additional language. We assume that all of you have children who are in the EAL program, might be new to the EAL program at UNIS, and we wanted to share a little bit more about what English as an additional language is and how we support your children with acquiring English. At a Japanese community meeting a couple of months ago, or maybe not too long ago, we talked about the concept of translanguaging. And that was a new term for many people. And at that parent meeting, there was a request for more information about translanguaging, about language acquisition. And so at that time, we committed to making sure that we hosted a language learning morning for parents. So we hope that you find this morning interesting. It's going to be hosted by Jason Mule. Jason is the team leader for our EAL department in the elementary school. Also with us is Jill. Jill is EAL in grade 1. And we have Christina, EAL grade 3. And I'm having such a bad morning. Beth, sorry. And Beth, who is new, but I do know her name. Beth is EAL in kindergarten. Val, EAL in grade 2, and Pat, EAL in grade 5. So we have the whole team with us this morning, so thanks for joining. I'm not sure if you guys are staying for the whole thing or if you have to run out and teach kids. That's okay too. All right, but thank you for coming. I'm going to hand over to Jason, and I hope that you have some new learning, and if you have some questions, we'd love for you to ask those questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. My name is Jason Moole, and I'm the grade 4 EAL teacher, and I'm also the elementary school EAL team leader. I see a lot of familiar faces here, so it's wonderful to see many of you again. I've taught your children, and so it's really great to see all of you here for this information session today. All right, so we're basically here to help with an understanding of what we do as an EAL program, how we help your children, what are our principles, what do we stand by, and who we are, and some strategies on how we help your kids learn. So what we're going to do is we're going to start. I'm going to go through some information with you, and then if you have any further questions, we're going to allow you some time with your grade level EAL teacher, and you can ask them questions about the program and maybe more specific things. It won't be a time to ask questions about your child. We can set up a different time later, but it is a time to ask about the structures, the co-teaching models, the strategies, and how do we help your children learn. So, moving ahead, we do, this is our UNIS principles. I'm sure you've seen them many times before in our mission statement. We do strive to empower your kids. We try to give them what they need to share their voice. And because they're learning English, we have such great pride when they go through our program, going from being new to English to being leaders in our school. So that's just something I wanted to just mention here, is how it's a real sense of pride for all of us to see your children grow into these amazing people that live these values that our school tries to embody. If you want any further information about our EAL program, you can always access it through Veracross. This is our handbook, and there's lots of information in there. Some of the information we may touch on today, but if you want any further information about our program, please feel free to go and read our handbook. as Megan was introduced, maybe we could just stand up, and if you guys just can just say your name and what grade you are again, just in case that we missed it the first time. So.
I'm Beth, and I'm in kindergarten.
My name is Jill Andretti, and I'm grade 1.
I'm Val, and I'm in grade 2. Hi, I'm Christina, and I teach grade 3.
I'm Pat, and I teach grade 5.
Okay. So we just thought maybe just as an icebreaker, getting us going this morning, we're going to allow you to do some introductions amongst yourselves. Say who you are. Talk about how long have your child been going to UNIS, what grade is your child in, and we want to do a little bit of translanguaging here. Share what you think is the most interesting word in your language. Okay, and I'll let you explain that a little bit. So, for example, English is my first language, but I also, my father's German, and he always had lots of interesting words that he shared with me growing up. So I always found, it's not a very kind word, but he always used to say, when he was driving, he always used to go, "You Schweinhund!" And it translates directly as pig dog, but like it doesn't make any sense in English, so I always found that really interesting. So that's my story of a language that I found. I mean, and German is my second language, and so anyway, why don't you go ahead and just talk amongst yourselves, and we'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes to do this. Thanks. Thank you. So I hope you had a chance to get to know more about somebody sitting near you, and you got the chance to talk about an interesting word in your language. So today, moving forward, here's our program for today. So we're going to talk about our principles as an EAL program to start out with. We're going to go through our EAL program and the different levels of support as they currently stand. We'll talk briefly about the importance of home language. So that's the language that your child spoke first, okay, at home. And then we're going to talk about translanguaging, and then we'll speak a little bit about our partnership, which is so vitally important in the lives of your children. So let's talk a little bit about our EAL program, the principles. So we've got some really interesting graphics that kind of piece all of it together. At UNIS, language learning is integrated in all classes. It doesn't matter if you're in PE, if you're in art, you're in unit of inquiry, literacy. We do teach language in all of that. Sometimes it's very explicit. Other times it's more kind of inferred. And therefore, we expect all of our teachers, regardless of what they teach, to be language teachers. So every teacher in the elementary school is a language teacher. Whether they're labeled that or not, they are a language teacher. All home languages are encouraged and valued at our school. And we're going to get more into that in a little bit, but it's important for students to feel a strong connection to their identity. Language learners at all levels are recognized and as individuals, and they're encouraged to get involved in our school community. It's such an important thing when we see our students not only participate in classes, but get involved in after-school activities, in performances, sports, all of the great things that are on offer here at UNIS. And finally, the last principle, which may be the most important one, is our partnership is essential. So that's kind of why we're here today, and that's the principle I finished on purposely, because we're all here because we want to help our children be as successful as possible, be the best version of themselves. So, going from our principles, I'm sorry, Jill, if we could just go back to that one. Then these are all the different ways that our EAL team works together with all the other teachers and kids to help make that happen. Okay, and so we may touch on some of these, but just know that these are all the different ways that this happens here, that how we live our principles in practice. So let's talk a little bit about our EAL program. First of all, this is the first image we're going to show you is an iceberg. Now, if we can imagine language is an iceberg, a lot of it is mostly below water. The ones that we see all the time above water, this is the social language, and this is the language that your child learns first. It's on the playground. It's just the conversations that happen, before school begins. Okay, it's the conversations in the morning meeting about how the weekend was, and so this social language, it generally takes 2 to 3 years to fully develop and catch up to a native English speaker. Now, it's all this stuff that's below the water. This is the academic content, and this is what takes a lot longer. And this is the stuff that we work with classroom teachers to help. We try to be as explicit as possible and try to teach, okay? So these are building up sentence length, grammatical structures. This is vocabulary. So moving from simple vocabulary to technical vocabulary and all the stuff in between. I don't know. I can't. We can't ignore that. Do you want to say who you are? What is the character? Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Josh. Getting back to academic language. Many of your children may not be in the EAL program any longer by the time this fully develops. So it takes generally between 5 to 7 years for this to fully develop and catch up with their native speaking peers. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight into what we're looking at with language learning. It takes time. Some of it happens very fast. Some of it takes much longer, okay? So our EAL program doesn't straddle the whole 7 years, but it does straddle for a large part of that, okay? And so one of the big questions that we're asked a lot is, how long will my child be in EAL? Well, that really depends on so many factors, but ultimately your child will take up to 7 years to catch up fully, okay? They probably won't be in the EAL program for that long, but it will take some time. Okay, so be patient. All right. So EAL support in the elementary, I just want to go through a few of the things that we do. Okay, this is obviously not a fully complete list, but just some of them and how we help your children succeed and be to do their best here. So first of all, we are an immersion school. That means that classes are taught in English. So they're fully immersed, okay, from the material that they're taught with, to the stuff that goes on bulletin boards, to the language that they're asked to converse in. It's in English most of the time. So we call that immersion. Secondly, all the teachers, they work together to decide on how we want to best support your children. So we plan together, and we co-teach together, and there's lots of different models on how that might look. So for example, Jill and I, if we're co-teachers, maybe she might take a group, and I might take a separate group. That's what we call parallel teaching. So maybe Jill's group is reading a book at the grade 1 level, and maybe I'm reading a book that might not be at the grade 1 level yet because the kids that I'm working with haven't reached that level. So we're just going to give them a little bit above that. That's one version. Sometimes we might teach the same lesson at the same time together. So Jill might introduce the topic, the content. I might go through the language features of it. I might go through the different kind of verbs that we expect to see. So those are two type of models you may see. Another one could be, maybe Jill's going to present the content, and I'm just going to go around and check with kids and see how their understanding is. So that's one lead, one kind of checking in. So we have lots of different models that we use in different situations depending on what the kids need at the time. So I wanted you to be aware that we really focus on what kids' needs are, and the topic that we're teaching. We do scaffold language across all subject areas. So here's a scaffold. This is I think, Val, this is from grade 2. So this is to help children with different math shapes. And so just having that accessible on the wall as an anchor chart helps kids use language in their learning. Here's a sentence frame that often helps them. You'll see a lot of these in our classrooms. So scaffolds are very important, not only just for the EAL kids, but for all of our children. And we are flexible. So depending on what kids need, we are flexible with our approaches. Home language is an asset. It's not something that we want to hide and put away in the cabinet. Strong home language helps with learning in English. So that is something that we value here. We do use formative assessment throughout the year to monitor progress. And at the end of the year, and sometimes at the beginning of the year, we use a full battery of English language proficiency tests that measure progress. Okay, and I think most of the teachers have been in touch with you about, we've just recently been going through that in the last month with your children on assessing their levels right now. So those are just some of the ways that we support your children in the classrooms with their learning. So I just wanted to go through a little bit of a matrix here that kind of goes through how we support the different levels. So I'll just give you a second to have a look at what we're seeing here. So at the moment, we track kids across 4 different levels. Beginners, those are children who are new to English. Intermediate, they've got a little bit more experience with English. Advanced, further experience. And then independent, where they're still, remember, they're still learning English, but they're no longer needing the extra support that the EAL program offers them. So remember that iceberg model. They may be in that 5 to 7 years, maybe 3 years, depending on the children. So if we look through this, beginners will get a lot of support from the classroom teacher and EAL teacher. Often we'll be in the lessons almost every day. We'll be working with the beginner learner on how to access, giving access to the curriculum, giving them a little bit more scaffolds than the other EAL students might need. In grades 2 to 5, we do offer a lesson for EAL, okay, and it's during the World Language Block. In kindergarten, grade 1, that will take place in the classroom, those extra language lessons. And we do formally assess them at the end of the year and sometimes at different times depending on the child. We use lots of different, so at the intermediate advanced stage, we do most of the support in the classroom. We use different models, as I mentioned before, to help them. We do have lots of language scaffolds throughout the room and sometimes specifically with the task that we're doing. And then as students progress to the independent level, we would just use the normal assessments that are used with every other child in the grade. So we don't have the extra EAL assessment. We would just use the assessments that we normally would use for all kids. Okay, so that is our EAL program. If you want to ask more specifics about that, there'll be some time at the end where you can meet with your grade level teacher and ask specifics if you need to about this. And of course, you're always welcome to set up time with us to meet about those things. So let's move on to talking about the importance of home language. So home language is absolutely essential. Having a strong home language is absolutely essential for learning English because it helps with cognitive development. It'll be a lot easier for your child to learn English if they already know structures of language in their home language. So we really want to emphasize it's important when your child comes here, please don't forget to talk to them in your language. Read to them in your language. Make sure they're writing in your language. Okay, it's so important because not only is it for cognitive development, it is also because they will understand language better. The connections that they can make between languages will help them improve their English, grammatical structures, vocabulary. It also will help them develop a strong sense of identity and self-esteem. Being proud of where you come from, being proud of your language, making connections between your language and English will serve them very well. And finally, academic success. There is study after study out there that says students who are strong in their home language will be more successful in the long term. And all the tests that we have, all the battery of tests around the world, it's very consistent. Students who are strong in their first language will be better academically in any other language. So the evidence is there, and there's lots of it, and we can point to study after study to help you with that if you want to read further. Please.
And so just not to clarify, but to add on to that, when we talk about getting strong in your home language, we aren't talking about only speaking, we're talking about reading and writing. The literacy is what I mean by that. So all the studies that Jason's talking about are showing reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills. So
Yeah, thanks Thanks, Beth. So as we talk about how home language is important, let's talk a little bit about translanguaging and the power that it has in the classroom. So you're wondering, what is this translanguaging? Well, let's just start out with a little definition. It's when we use different languages together to help with learning. So so for example, in grade 4, we're learning about body systems. Now, in order to understand new concepts, we have to be able to connect it to something we already know. Okay, that's the basic premise of learning, is we have to connect it to something we already know. Now, if all the students' prior knowledge in the digestive system is in Korean or it's in Japanese, why wouldn't we connect to that? So it's really important to connect to previous learning. And so translanguaging, bringing in other languages into the classroom, can really help children connect with background knowledge, and can help them understand and then explore further the new ideas that they're going to do in the classroom in English. And sometimes they may want to take it further at home and talk to you in your language about the digestive system. And if you can do that in your language at home, that's going to further help their understanding of this body system. Translanguaging also allows students to fully express their thinking. Okay, maybe they don't have the words yet in English. Okay, and I say yet because they will as we go through the study of this. So let's rely on the first language to help us with that. It's also going to support language development. It'll help the children be able to learn new ideas, because basically if they know it in their language, they can also understand what it is in English as well. And maybe now they're learning in English, and connecting it to your home language will also help their understanding of it further. Cultural validation, as I talked about, self-esteem, equity, these are all things why we value translanguaging in the classroom. Okay, so we don't want to put that language that your child speaks in the closet in the corner. We want to take it out. We want to make it very much alive in the classroom, part of the learning process, because it will allow your children to reach their full potential. It will let them be the best learners that they can possibly be. You guys want to add anything that I missed about translanguaging?
I think we rely on translanguaging a lot when we have a bigger conceptual understanding, and when children get together that share their home language, they can help dispel any misconceptions. Sometimes they'll be like, oh no, it's this, not that, and then they go, oh, right. So sometimes it's really powerful for those bigger concepts.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. So translanguaging is a superpower that we can use to help our students reach their full potential. Please.
We use translanguaging with adults as well. And often in faculty meetings, when we have our 60 elementary teachers and then 40 teaching assistants who speak Vietnamese, there are times that we will have a question for our teachers to discuss in groups if we're doing some professional learning together. And our TAs will turn and talk to each other in Vietnamese. Because if you're dealing with big concepts, we're wrestling with curriculum or with some professional learning around diversity or equity, it's much easier than to really process those concepts in your first language and then translate them to the language of the classroom or meeting. And so you probably do that as adults all the time without knowing that it has a specific term. Very helpful for us.
Thanks, Megan. So what's next? So we talked about the principle of our partnership, okay? For our EAL program to be successful, we need to work together. So one of the biggest things, the best things that you can do at home with your child is speak your home language. Speak your home language. They're going to get lots of English practice at school. Speak your home language with them at home. Read with them. Even grade 4s and grade 5s, it's still possible to read with them. Make the time. Reading is one of the biggest gifts, the greatest gifts you can give your child. Read together. Read together in your home language. Friendships. I mean, a pretty simple thing. Invite friends over. And encourage your child to make friends with other nationality groups, I guess, is a good idea. So if your child is German and they only hang out with German friends, they're going to just speak German. That's not going to help their English language, their social language in English. I mean, I don't want to discourage the German friend from talking to German friends, but let's try to build on that, okay? And so encourage different friendship groups. ASAs are a great way to get your child exposure to different English language at school. It also fosters friendships that might not happen in the classroom. And this one is a big one. Praise your child for what they can do. Sometimes we often get focused on the deficits. Focus on the positive. Focus on the great things that they're already doing. That's really helpful and something that I always am mindful of with my daughter as well. So it's really important. Focus on the positive. You could watch movies together, cartoons, fun things in English. And if you need the subtitles, have the subtitles so you can talk to your child about it in your home language. That's the great thing about today, is that subtitles are everywhere. My partner is Korean. We watch K-drama all the time, and I have the English subtitles underneath. So, yeah, it's amazing what technology can do these days. Be patient, okay? So that's really important. Be patient. We talked about that iceberg. It takes a long time to fully develop a language. So here's a little quote for you. It's so important, this partnership that we have. I want to just leave you on that one, because now what we want to give you opportunity is to talk to your child's teacher. If you want to ask any specific questions about the program, this is a good time to do it. Okay, so how do we want to, Pat, if you want to stay over there for grade 5, Val, if you, where do you want to go? Just to grade 2, I know, somewhere. I'll let you guys find your teacher. Okay, so thank you for coming today. Please ask questions if there's anything that you need further information about. We're here to help you and be successful and build a really positive partnership. So thank you, everybody.